Tonight's objective is I can multiply and divide signed decimals. I'm going to start by reviewing what we talked about in class about multiplying decimals. We know when we're multiplying signed decimals, a positive times a positive is a positive, negative times a negative is a positive, positive times a negative is a negative, and a negative times a positive is a negative. We'll also remember you just multiply as you normally would, and then we worry about where to place the decimal in the answer. So here, 4 times 7 is 28. Put down an 8, carry a 2. 4 times 6 is 24, and 2 is 26. These zeros won't change the value. So here I just look, I move over 2 decimal places here, 1 more here. That means in the final answer I move over 3 decimal places. What I'd like to start with is just going over the multiplication problems you had for homework. So letter A was a multiplication problem. First thing I look at is I say, okay, this is a positive times a positive, so the answer will be positive. So I do 3.75 times 0.4. We can consider this our scrap work. 4 times 5 is 20. Put down a 0, carry a 2. 4 times 7 is 28, and 2 is 30. Put down a 0, carry a 3. 4 times 3 is 12, and 3 more is 14. No, 12, 13, 14, 15. How about 15? And so what I then need to look at is how many places to move over the decimal point. 2 places, 1 more place. In my final answer, I need to move my decimal point over 3 places. So my final answer will be a positive 1.5. Letter C also happened to be a multiplication. So what we're going to do is we're going to do negative 4 times 0.5. So first of all, a negative times a positive. I know my final answer will be a negative. So my final answer to this will be a negative, and now I have to decide a negative what? So 4 times 0.5. 5 times 4 is 20. I have to move my decimal point over once. So it's 2.0 or just 2. So a negative times a positive is a negative. So that's negative 2 as an answer. The other that was a multiplication problem was letter E. So again, I look at this and I say a negative times a negative is a positive. So I know my final answer will be positive. And now I just do 7.5 times 5. 5 times 5. Again, this is my scrap work, so I didn't choose to keep my signs attached. 5 times 5 is 25. Put down a 5, carry a 2. 5 times 7 is 35, and 2 is 37. I see I have to move my decimal point over 1 place. That should be like a little teeny tiny 2 up there. I have to move my decimal point over 1 place, so I know my final answer will be negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 7.5 is 37.5. So those were the 3 multiplication problems you had for homework. Now let's do a quick recap on division. So we know when dividing decimals, it's the exact same sign results as it was for multiplying. So a positive divided by a positive is a positive. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. First of all, we talked in class today, if there is no decimal attached to the number you're dividing by, you just go ahead and divide as you normally would. 5 goes into 3 zeros, so then 5 goes into 39 sevens. 7 times 5 is 35. Remainder of 4, bring down a 9. 5 goes into 49 9 times, that's 45. Remainder of 4, 5 goes into 48 times. But we talked in class today, if what you're dividing by has decimal within it, you have to first move that decimal point over. And however many places you have to move that decimal point over, you have to move over the decimal point within the division box also. So hopefully you remember that from class today. Let's try the problems we had for homework. We had letter B was a division problem. So we have 14.5 divided by negative 2. Well, my first thought is a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So I know my answer will be negative, and now I figure out negative what? 14.5 divided by 2. This would be like my scrap work. 2 goes into 14.5. 2 goes into 14 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. Subtract off that. That would be a 0. Bring down the 5. Make sure this decimal point appears right above where it was within the the division box. So we say 2 goes into 5 twice. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. We always then have to bring down our 0. How many times does 2 go into 10? 5 times. Positive divided by negative was a negative. 14.5 divided by 2 would give us 7.25. So that answer is a negative 7.25. The other problem that involved dividing decimals was letter D. And I first look at my signs. So I have a positive divided by a positive. And so I know that answer will be positive. I then go ahead and outside my division box, I have 7.5, whatever I'm dividing by. Inside my division box, I have my 16.5. And then outside I say, okay, I need to move that decimal point over 1. So inside I move that decimal point over 1. So what I'm really going to do is 75 into 165. I'm going to bring that decimal point right up. So how many times does 75 go into 165? Well, 2 times 75 is 150. Subtract that off. 65 minus 150. 165 minus 150 is 15. Bring down our 0. How many times does 75 go into 150? Twice. 2 times 75 is 150. Remainder of 0. So the answer must be a positive 2.2. All right, hopefully that's helpful. We went over that in class today, so tonight was just a quick review for you to check against. Try to have a good night. Take care.